Tune in to the Diva Hut.
Hey, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Today, our guest is Teresa Rand. She has a consulting business called Rand Consultants, and she also has a community, what is it? Community group, right?
Yep, women's leadership group.
Women's leadership group called Boss Ladies Leadership.
Yep.
Thank you, Teresa, for joining us. How are you?
I am great, Paris, and I am glad to be here.
So can you share with us your insight on your background in business administration and how it led you into your leadership position?
Wow. Yeah, I was a late bloomer. I did not
Okay.
go back to college until well after marriage and 3 children,
Okay.
and found myself a single mother. And I was like, ooh, I want to do better than this in life. And so I put myself back through school while working full time.
Okay.
So I was already working in an organization where it really didn't matter what my degree was in, because I knew I was going to stay, and I was doing okay in the organization, and I just needed that sheet of paper because they wouldn't promote you past a certain level if you didn't have a college degree.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, I just need basket weaving. What can I do really quickly to get out and all of that? But anyway, I fell in love with going to college. So I did decide to get a business degree that would fit with whatever I decided to do in life. So I didn't graduate from college till I was 42,
Okay.
and I was able to be promoted, eventually becoming the CEO of an organization here in Florida, and had a 30-year career there. And then I just woke up one day, really just woke up and said, I think I'm done
Okay.
and I don't want to do this anymore. And I worked for a nonprofit, so I did a lot of fundraising, and I loved every minute of it until I didn't. I was like, okay. So I started my own consulting business. I gave them a year's notice and worked
Okay.
it out and helped find a new CEO, did all that stuff. I didn't just go in and quit that day. I woke up and had this epiphany, right?
Mhm.
Um, so 5 years ago, going into 6 years now, I started my consulting business, and I love it.
Okay. And tell us, what is the RAND consulting? What does that consist of? The services.
I consult with either individuals, I do individual level coaching, or with companies. The majority of what I do is with organizations, and I work on communication skills.
Okay.
I go in and talk to teams about how to more efficiently or effectively communicate with each other, which
Mhm.
is more important now because so many companies are working hybrid. All our communication is done through this little camera we're looking at, right?
Right.
And it takes different skills and techniques. And I use a lot of personality assessments, because if we're aware of who we are, we're
Right.
more conscious of how we communicate and come across to others. So a lot of fun.
And so what have you found your effective approach into when you're going in working with teams or individuals on how to develop better communication styles?
You know, the first thing I do is figure out what are the barriers as they see them.
Okay.
Are we not communicating so that I don't know what's expected of me, or somebody doesn't like me, we're not getting along? What are the issues surrounding? So I like to talk to someone in the company about, what are the issues, why are you looking to bring someone in on
Right.
this topic?
Hmm.
And then I always lead Paris with a personality assessment,
Okay.
and I have a litany of them in my toolbox, but the two that people have most heard of are Gallup Strengths and DISC assessments.
Hmm.
And so I go in and help them figure out, it's not that Susie's not listening to me or that Susie doesn't like me. It's
Hmm.
that maybe I'm not communicating the way she's more likely to hear and understand.
Okay.
Because if you and I are very different personalities, and I only communicate in my personality, you're not going to hear me. I
Hmm.
have to figure out, how do you hear better?
Right.
Not, it's just different. We're all different, right? We come with this, all come with baggage.
Right.
If you're over the age of 10, you come with baggage.
Right. Right.
So my favorite saying is, it's not personal, it's just not clear.
Right, right. And that's key. I think that's really important with everybody is that we all communicate differently. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And even like when it comes to like love languages, people have different communication styles.
Absolutely. My husband and I, very different. Very different love language. So I know that about him, and he
Right,
knows that about me, and it just makes sense, right?
right,
It
right,
just makes sense.
right. So being the founder and president of Teresa Rand Consultants and the Boss Ladies Leadership Community, what motivated you to establish these entities?
I knew that I wanted to get out of nonprofit work. I had done
Mhm.
it for a long time. And again, I loved what I did and I was fairly good at it, but I just wanted to do something different. And I didn't really know what that was.
Mhm.
So I actually hired a coach and said, okay, I went through all of her, worksheets and questions and all those things to figure out what were the skills I had learned in 30 years of being in the working world that I could translate into a business.
Okay.
Because I didn't know that on my own
Mhm.
until I went through the process with somebody else hearing me say, I can do this and I can do that. And I always loved personality assessments. I used them with every employee I ever hired.
Wow.
And they were used on me by one of my first CEOs. So I knew that that was a sweet spot. So I
Okay.
took that time, even though I said to you, I woke up one day and decided I was done. It took me 2 years to officially turn in my resignation notice. I hired a coach. I got certified in various disciplines of assessments. So I planned. I'm a big planner. So I planned my exit strategy.
And so explain to us what the Boss Lady Leadership Community is. What does it entail?
The Boss Lady Leadership Community was not part of my business plan
Okay.
at all. And that's why it's a separate LLC and I have a business partner. But I had women in my community come to me and say, we don't really have a women's group. We have networking groups, but we don't just get together and learn from each other. And so I pulled together about 10 women, took them all to lunch and said, okay, talk to me about this concept. And from that, we gave birth to Boss Lady, and it is a membership organization. We actually have, we call them ladder groups because I believe that as women climb up the corporate ladder, very often they fold up their ladder and don't help other women.
Right.
And so I believe that we need to keep our ladder down and reach down those rungs and help other women
Hmm.
because we can be our own worst enemies, right?
Yes, we can.
We
Yes.
we can. So we have what we call ladder groups,
Okay.
and they're individual mastermind groups. We have a virtual one for those friends of ours that don't live in our community, and then we have them surrounding our community. We have 8 of them now, and they're groups of no more than 12 women that
Okay.
get together monthly and talk about what am I working on personally or professionally.
Right.
What do I need to be held accountable for? So next month, if I said I was going to do this group of ladies will say, how's that coming? What'd you do? So that's part of the group. And then in September, we have a women's conference every year here
Okay.
in Daytona Beach, Florida, and bring in speakers from across the country and get together for 2 days. Our tagline, Paris, is to embrace, empower, and educate all women.
Wow. I love
We
it.
need to be each other's, we need to lift each other up and not tear each other down.
I
And
love it.
sometimes women can be pretty brutal.
Oh, trust me, I know. I know. But it's like you and I on our journey, our mission. Like I started this station and the podcast is to give women a platform to talk about being an entrepreneur and
Right.
how overcoming obstacles on their journey. And like you said, we have to hold each other hand and we're all in the same fight. It's not like it's
Right.
a race thing, it's a gender thing, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We have to be in the same fight together to get through it to the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to understand our differences, because so often, just because I'm supporting another woman, I actually had someone call me. I love this story. One time, it's during election, local elections here, and somebody called me and said, I'm on this candidates committee, whatever, happened to be a man. And it was a woman that called me, but it was a man's committee she was on. And she said, we brought up your name and if you were supporting, and she said, but we thought that you would only support women.
Wow.
That
Okay.
you'd only vote for women. And I said, well, first of all, thank you for calling me and asking the question instead of making an assumption. It doesn't mean that I have to agree with you or that I'm going to vote with you for you, but I can still support you, right?
Exactly.
For putting yourself out there. And I always tell people I am a proud feminist, but my definition of feminist is not that I hate men. I have sons, I have a husband, I've had a couple of husbands. I obviously like men. But I am a feminist that believes there are not enough women at tables of power.
Yes. I'm the same way.
And we can get into a deeper conversation. There's certainly not enough women in general. There's more white women, less Black women, less Hispanic women. I mean, and we have to talk about those things. Or we're not going to make a difference, right?
We do. We can't keep sweeping the issue under the rug.
Right.
We have to continue to bring light and have platforms like your foundation, my station, just continue to have platforms like you saying. We're about getting a woman through the door. Now, once you get through the door, get the exposure, like you're saying, that's the support. We don't have to, like you're saying, agree and vote, but we want to make sure y'all get the necessary tools to get into that next race, whatever that may be.
Exactly.
So tell me, how do you balance? I know you have wear a lot of hats. How do you balance working with personal life, and how does that impact your organizations?
Well, I will be totally honest at this point. I have no children at home, so balance is not the issue it used to be. And so I don't complain anymore about balance because my children are grown. I have a husband, that helps with things. So that it's not a huge issue for me in my life anymore, which is why I can do a lot of things. Being a single mom, working full time, putting myself through college, I could write a book on work-life balance. And I actually do a speech called Superwoman is a Myth. There's no such thing. Work-life balance might look different for you than it looks for me.
Right.
And we can't set ourselves up to think we're going to have balance every day. On those days when everything's clicking, we ought to write those down because they're really few and far between.
Yeah, those milestones. Yes.
Yeah, right. And if we understand that and don't set ourselves up that everybody's perfect and everybody except for me has work-life balance, because that's not true. I don't care what you see on social media. Simply not true. And understand some days things are going to be really good at work and all heck breaks loose at home. Some days things are really good at home and not so good at work. And how do we balance that? Work-life balance is my personal journey and responsibility, not anybody else's. And if I'm in a job that I say I can't have work-life balance because of my job, make a plan to get out of it.
Right. That's true.
It's still up to you.
That's true. The decision is within you, and you got to be willing to come up with a plan, like you said.
Right. It's still up to you at the end of the day.
So in your personal opinion, what are some key challenges and opportunities that women leaders face in today's business landscapes, and how can organizations work towards fostering more inclusive environments?
Paris, we said it earlier, talk about it. Talk about it. And this is my opinion. We tend right now, I think, to be going backwards in a lot of ways, and we're not talking about it. And when we do, we're shut down. We need to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
We need to keep talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and not just with women, but with disabilities, with, with race, with LGBTQ, all of those things we have to keep talking about.
Yes.
And when companies choose not to, that's not good.
Yeah.
And I live in Florida, if you follow politics, but we're not doing a great job of talking about it.
Yeah.
We're trying to shut it all down. And it feels like we might be going backwards in some ways,
Yeah.
And so platforms like you have, platforms like I have, that's important, because all of those issues, I believe, are still out there. They're just a little more subtle.
Okay. I can see that. Yeah. Now that you say it like that, yeah.
But the Good Old Boy Network is still alive and well. The hiring discrepancies in race, all of that's still happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just have to keep talking about it when we experience it.
And I feel like what you're saying, you're right. It became more subtle, like this going with the everyday flow. People become so bombarded with, the day-to-day life and bills and things like that. So they just start allowing and accepting instead of just fighting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And now we have those little microaggressions, that it's not so blatant anymore, and people are like, well, get over it, have thick skin. Well, no, because it's just not right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not right when you think I'm the secretary and I'm the CEO.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not right.
Just not right. And we have to respectfully call people out on it.
And what advice would you give to women that wants to become leaders, but don't even know, like they think they're not worthy enough, or they don't know how just to take the next step?
Yeah. There's a couple things. If you can afford it, get a coach. We have coaches for everything else. We hire coaches to play sports. We have dance instructors. We have voice coaches. I mean, you name it. So why not have a coach to help us succeed in our career? That's number one. If you can't afford a coach, find a mentor.
Right.
Anybody I've ever sat down with and said, hey, I really need your help or advice, nobody says no, because they are honored.
Right.
And we think we're asking something that they may not want to do, but that's generally not the case. We need to ask for the help we need. I'm looking at doing this. I want this promotion, or I want to go get this degree. Ask somebody to help you. I call it your personal board of directors.
Okay.
And they change throughout your life, but they should be 3 or 4 people, not your mother, not your best friend, not the yes people, or I know at least my mom, thinks you always do everything great, although she can be brutally honest too. But you want people outside of your regular comfort zone,
right,
that maybe have already achieved what you're looking to achieve.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be even in your same industry. If they've risen up the ladder making widgets and you're want to be a brain surgeon, they can still give you valuable advice.
Right.
You got to get your education, especially if you're going to do brain surgery, but you can still get advice outside of that industry.
Right. And like, it's like accountability, like almost, what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mastermind groups are another. Get 4 or 5 people together and say, hey, can we meet once a month, or once every 2 weeks, or once a quarter? Here's my plan. And I just need somebody to talk it through. I'm part of a mastermind group. I just had a meeting yesterday with my group, and I was articulating some thoughts I was having, and all of a sudden I was like, I don't really want to do that.
Okay.
But until I listened to somebody else and then I said it out loud, it just sounds different
Right.
when somebody's truly listening to me
Mhm.
and asking the right questions. So
Yeah.
there's lots of people out there willing to help you. We just have to ask.
That's true. And like you said, I like how you said it. Like even with you before you started, you went and got a coach and you went and got certified. You had a plan and
Right.
but you went and seek the help. You know what I mean? You
Right.
didn't just jump out and say, "Oh, I'm gonna do it. I know everything." You know, you went
Right.
and seek the help. So I think that's the key takeaway that I would like people
Yeah,
to understand.
absolutely. And it doesn't always have to cost money.
Yes.
There's lots of people out there that want to help you. But as women, we don't often ask for that help.
And that's the other part
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
because and that's the thing I was going to mention. We as women, I don't know what it is, but we act like we have to have it all together,
Right.
especially when we're going to another woman. Because I call like you my sister. We're all sisters. We're all women.
Absolutely.
And it's okay sometimes. I say if your skirt is showing, meaning your slip is showing, and
Yeah.
you have some flaws. That's fine. But
Yeah.
as your sister, we should be allowed to say, okay, this is what you got to work on here. Go here, and you know what I mean.
Right.
Do this. So as women, we need to do more of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are you working on for 2024?
Well, there's a couple things as I've set my goals for the year. I'm a big planner and goal setting. I actually do a course on it a couple times toward the end of the year. And I started a book last year and I did not finish it, although I did finish another book with a partner that wasn't in my plan. But my goal this year is to finish that book and get it out there into the world.
Okay.
That's number one.
Mhm.
And then number two, I have 7 grandchildren and I have another one on the way. So I want to really, my goal this year is to be very intentional about the work that I take on.
Okay. Okay.
You know, I'm not in the height of my career at my age, but I still have value. I still want to work. I still have things I want to accomplish and do, but I want to be a little more picky
Yeah.
about those things.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to 2024. Still have a women's conference coming up in September, and I want to grow that because that's a love of mine, giving back to other women. And but yeah, I'm just want to lay a little lower this year.
I am
Only do exactly what I want to do. It sounds very selfish, but at some point you're like, dadgummit, I've earned the right.
you earned it, right?
I've got an older mother, obviously, and who's very healthy, thankfully. But little things now, more doctor's visits and those kind of things. And then I have the grandkids, so I
Yeah,
want to work, but those are my first priorities.
I understand. And if
Yeah.
people wanted to get in contact with you about the consulting, about the boss lady leadership, what's the best way of getting in contact with you?
Very simple. It's my name, teresarand.com. And Teresa is spelled without the H. It's Teresa. Rand, R-A-N-D, teresarand.com. And then my podcast, I need to have you on, is called the Boss Lady Podcast. So I'm in year 4 or 5 of the podcast. So but all that information, Paris, is on my website.
All right. Well, thank you, Teresa, for stopping past. I love your story. I love we're in this fight together for
Yep.
women empowerment. And, don't think that you're alone. And you're always welcome to come back and talk with us anytime.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm glad we connected. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Bye.
Bye.
Tune in to the Diva Hawk Show. Motivate the glow. We give you more info. Think to my head to toe. I let the whole world know. I let the whole world know.